I loved my wife forever.
And of course, forever. All right. But you still killed her, didn't you?
A crime from the past has obsessed her.
That was Roman Strauss. That was his wife, Margaret. He stabbed her in the throat with a lovely pair of barber scissors. For whatever reason, these events are consuming her.
A stranger
My church.
has found her.
Why are you helping me?
I don't know. Maybe I feel sorry for you. Maybe I like you. How far back are you?
1948.
Hypnosis can take us back to our past lives. You expect me just to run with that?
There's a lot more people on this planet who believe in past lives than don't.
What do you see?
Mr. Strauss? Mike, someone wants to kill me.
Those are just dreams. They're not real.
The more she trusts him,
It's okay.
the more she fears him.
This is exactly what happened with Roman and Margaret.
I'm not Roman.
He had a pair of scissors.
To be the man who ended her life
Roman?
more than 40 years ago.
He was gonna kill me.
You saw Mr. Church in the past.
I'm not Roman!
Okay, Dead Again. This is 1991. I was in high school when this came out, but I do remember seeing it in a theater. I do believe I watched it with my sister. At the time, Kenneth Branagh was sort of making his first American splash. Actually, he kind of winks at himself the first time his character is introduced. In the film, his car is parked on the opposite side of the street, pointed in the wrong direction. Kenneth Branagh and his then wife, Emma Thompson, are basically showing up to conquer Hollywood in the early 90s. And this was sort of their first project. It's written by Scott Frank, and it's a very hard movie to just sort of nail down a plot in one sentence. Basically, the core story is set in modern times, present day, 1991, quote unquote. Emma Thompson has no memory of who she is. And she finds her way to this church. Convent, thank you. The same place, coincidentally, houses orphans and whatnot. Same place that this private detective played by Kenneth Branagh grew up. And they basically call him and guilt him into solving this case for them and basically taking her off their hands. And of course, in true sort of Hollywood convention, like would never happen if you were a serious detective or investigator, he falls in love with the center of this investigation. And the more he discovers about who she is and this past life story that we get into when he meets Derek Jacobi, this antiques collector slash psychic, I guess. He's a hypnotist. He's a hypnotist who can get people to regress, to either get rid of a childhood scare or in some cases regress into their past lives. And
but he's also a con artist because he uses those memories to find good antiques.
That's correct. We find out in the past that there is a very famous murder case that has taken place. A famous composer has killed his wife, or was put to death for killing his wife. And we are seeing in these series of flashbacks the events leading up to the death. And in the flashbacks, the murderer, or the accused murderer, looks just like Kenneth Branagh, and the victim looks just like Emma Thompson. So it seems like their love was doomed in the past. It's probably doomed in the present. And the mystery of who she really is and what their past means is all sort of swirled together. Again, it's not going to fit snugly in a little TV guide description, but it's got great supporting work everywhere you look too. Andy Garcia is in this movie, and a great small and uncredited role from Robin Williams.
It's uncredited, huh?
Yeah, he doesn't show. He was a big fan of Branagh. A lot of people were. He's still in his 20s, I think, late 20s when he made this movie, and he'd already, directed and starred in Henry V, and made a couple of other smaller British movies, and was sort of modeling himself as another Orson Welles type figure. And he was backing it up. In fact, until I think he did Frankenstein, I liked pretty much everything he put his name to. So, and I do, tipping my hand, count Dead Again is one of them. I do really enjoy the movie, and you got to think about this. He's in the center of the movie, and he's directing it. And he's not sort of a laid-back director. You get the feeling like he's very hands-on. He went on to direct Thor and Jack Ryan. And
they were already married at this point.
They
right?
were married at this point.
There's something just so awesome about seeing them work together, and also sort of heartbreaking knowing that they're not together anymore.
Yeah.
It's like...
Well, they both seem to have landed
play
on
off
their
each
feet.
other very well.
Yeah.
But still, like, there's just that, like, that playfulness and awesome dynamic.
I also like that
You
they're
just
both
want
playing
to believe in.
Americans, too. And one of the big twists of the movie is, of course, as expected, they are each the reincarnated version of these past lovers, but not as we anticipate them, correct? Whereas she is he in the past, and he is she in the past, if that makes any sense. As hard as it is to explain, it's very coherent in the film. In fact, one of my only real complaints about the movie is maybe a little bit the level of sort of bombast to the score. It's a very sort of operatic, big... It's like...
But a lot of that is the period, right? When they cut back to the
well,
sort of like early days of Hollywood kind of time
and it
period,
feels right with the operatic theme. He did write
He
very
was a
dramatic
composer.
music. And I get the choice, but for me it kind of feels overblown at times. But I'm predisposed to like the movie. And I do think that he earned a lot of good graces from me, both as a director and as an actor, from this movie. It wasn't Shakespeare, it wasn't sort of dry British humor. It was, fast, exciting, and very much the equal of anything else that you'd be seeing in the theaters in '91. That's what I thought. What do you think?
See, no, I definitely really like it. Again, I love watching the two of them together, and I like the twists and turns that some things you kind of suspect and see coming, but then there's plenty that surprises you. The fact that, because as her past life stuff is well established throughout most of the movie, right, and we just assume, as does she and everyone in the movie, assume that she is Margaret, the past life wife.
The victim.
And she's scared, it starts out she can't even speak, and she's having these nightmares about being stabbed and all this stuff. But I like that twist when we find out that he realizes that he was Margaret.
Scott Frank, who, as I said, needs to buy a last name, who wrote the script for that, deserves a lot of points. There's a lot of twists and turns to the scripts, but you don't necessarily feel manipulated. There's a great scene where Campbell Scott shows up, claiming that he is the husband, and he has all of this good, compelling evidence to the case, a wedding ring that matches the description, a missing glove, and he sells it really, 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 really well, and almost actually walks her out of the movie, problem solved, roll credits, before Kenneth Branagh catches at the last minute that the glove he brought happened to be for the wrong hand. It was a 50-50 chance, right? But the great thing about that scene is that you kind of believed him. Like, the first time you see the movie, you believe that, like, oh, well, she's married.
Yeah, he's not playing it sketchy. He's just a relieved spouse, right?
And that's both a compliment to the performance and the script in that respect. Like, well played. The other thing about Dead Again, I just wanted to say, is that it seems to be, in a large respect, kind of a forgotten movie. Not a lot of people either have seen it or seem to remember it. And I think it's one of the strongest movies that Branagh directed, and it's one of the big reasons that I liked him.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't see it when it first came out. I know I had seen it years ago, but probably just on video at some point. So I don't know I have no frame of what the response was at the time. Yeah, it's just kind of one of those movies.
It's a really well layered screenplay. I even like when we find out who she is, that she's this artist who lives in this loft, and she's been obsessing with drawing all these paintings that have scissors in them.
Mm-hmm.
And in the past life, she was, of course, murdered by scissors. It's just a really nice touch. And then, of course, there's a convenience.
Or she wasn't, really.
Yeah.
But
well, I guess. Yeah. But I guess it would make sense that
Her
she would
wife
still be
was.
obsessed, because I guess she went... In her past life, you're right. In her past life, she was put to death for killing somebody with scissors.
Yeah.
And she hadn't.
But the memories and the nightmares she was having, really, like, if we think back, I don't know if it would stand up to too much scrutiny, but it's the horror of the husband hearing and finding her.
Yeah. And they did have a terrible fight that night, and there was a lot of confused imagery.
Yeah.
Another great memorable scene. Andy Garcia is one of the characters who actually tethers the past and the present, and I like Andy Garcia a lot, but there's this problem with old age makeup.
Yeah, that was a...
Well, generally speaking, old age makeup, I don't think typically looks good. It's better to hire an old person. Mm-hmm. But I think the smart thing that they did with him, because the makeup wasn't that great, it was probably already in the script, but because they had him a tracheotomy case where he was talking through a microphone in his throat, and at one point actually smoking a cigarette through the hole in his throat, all through that scene, all I can look at is the hole in his throat.
And also because he wasn't just old, he was very sick, so he had all the, like...
tubes
weird
and stuff.
Like blotches all over his skin and weird, like he just would look very unhealthy. So it wasn't like they were trying to make an average looking old person.
Yeah.
So they could kind of get away with the over the top weird makeup stuff.
Yeah.
Plus it was the 90s. The effects are different than what we would see now, right?
Yeah. But, and again, he's another thing that you thought, well, where are they going with that character? He was a romantic rival. You don't quite believe him that he would be the murderer, but he's got to play into the plot.
What does he
somehow.
know about the story or what? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think basically we were uniformly positive about Dead Again. I guess it's a thin psychic thriller in that... Does that count? They're psychically bonded. There's a psychic nuance, and I guess they have
Well,
psychic...
it's sort of more about the past life connection as opposed to like what we consider psychic being like premonitions and knowing things, right?
Yeah. But I do think it's closer to the mark than the previous movie we discussed. So far. So simply. Is there anything else you want to say about Dead Again?
No.
Last chance.
Okay.